Welcome to my video. My name is Troy Small. I'm a retired Marine Corps contracting officer. I'm the Vice President of Sales at Skyway Acquisition. I'm also the founder and owner of Copperwater Consulting. And today in this video, I want to talk to you about set-aside contracts. So I specifically want to discuss set-aside contracts and give some insight into what those are and other insights surrounding that. So where I am is I am on the Small Business Administration's website on sba.gov. And basically, I'm going to use this as a guide for the discussion today. So we're talking about set-aside contracts. And so here it says set-aside contracts for small businesses. To help provide a level playing field for small businesses, the government limits competition for certain contracts to small business. Those contracts are called small business set-asides, and they help small businesses compete for and win federal contracts. There are two kinds of set-aside contracts: competitive set-asides and sole source set-asides. So those are what basically set-aside contracts are. And I'm going to give some insight here in a sec. I want to read this here, what it says for competitive. So for competitive set-aside contracts, when at least two small businesses could perform the work or provide the products being purchased, the government sets aside the contract exclusively for small businesses. With few exceptions, this happens automatically for all government contracts under $150,000. Some set-asides are open to some set-asides are open to any small business, but some are open only to small businesses who participate in the SBA's contracting assistance programs. So let's unpack this a little bit. So the first thing I want to hit on is the fact that it states that at least two small businesses could perform the work. Now, this is important for us small business concerns out there. So when the government is issuing a source of sought notice or request for information or some type of market research event, even a draft RFP release, that's a market research event. They're trying to, but in this case, more than likely, it would be like a source of sought notice as an example. In this case, they put out a source of sought notice. They're trying to find out if there are at least two or more small businesses that can perform the work. This is the reason why they're doing so. They're looking for a source of sought. Sorry, they put out solicitations for, like, they do source of sought notices in order to figure out if there are two or more small businesses that can do the work, or there are two or more woman-owned small businesses that can do the work if they're trying to do that category, right? So that's why we see those events. And this is why it's important to be in the game, because I've mentioned in videos in the past is that many times other companies don't bid. So imagine if it's you and another company who happen to respond and they determine that your response is good enough. You guys are responsible. And so they determine that they're going to do a competitive contract or a competitive opportunity based on that. Just going into that, in your mind, that's 50-50. Of course, other people in the market may see the RFQ, if you will, but at least going into this, that you won't know that inside information, but the fact of the matter is that when you understand how the process works, you are better able to plan and strategize your response and whether or not you even respond, because some stuff, some opportunities you don't want to respond to. You don't just quote unquote chase contracts just to chase them to try to win. There's a huge amount of risk involved, and so you always have to calculate the risk. The government always calculates risk. Successful defense contractors and small business owners and government contractors, they're always factoring in risk into the decisions that they're making. And so the other piece here is that I'm going to say this kind of sort of my way. So basically, most every contract that's put out in the government, if it's less than $150,000, it is reserved for small business concerns. That's what that statement means. It's shown here. It means that by law, it's supposed to be small business are given an opportunity to bid. This is that opportunity. So when they say that everything under $150,000, small business has an opportunity to bid, well, first they want to check to see, are there small business concerns out there paying attention and in the competition, in the game? Just because you're a business, that doesn't mean you're in the game, right? You got to be paying attention. You have to respond. You have to be compliant. You have to be responsible. There's all kinds of wickets that kind of go with that, not just, hey, here I am. So it's important to know that as well. But that's where that $150,000 value comes from. Now, the other part here, the second paragraph talks about how it may be only open to certain small businesses that are in small business contracting assistance programs. I'll hit on that a little later. We'll cover the programs in detail. Well, actually, we'll do that now just to show you really quick. Those programs that it's referring to is the 8A Business Development Program, the Hub Zone Program, the Woman-Owned Small Business Federal Contracting Program, and the Service Disabled Veteran-Owned Small Business Program. What this means is that each of these categories of business programs within the SBA, but each one of these, you have the ability to have a set aside for, meaning a competition that's only for 8A business development firms, meaning that a woman-owned business cannot bid on an 8A set aside. She can bid, or that company can bid, but in that case, they would not be looked at because they would be non-responsive in the sense that that company has a woman-owned designation as opposed to an 8A designation, and vice versa for the other designations as well. So these are those extra programs, if you will, or the small business socioeconomic programs. So I'm gonna go back up here. All right, so that takes care of that for the competitive piece, right? So now the sole source set-aside contracts. So most contracts are competitive, but sometimes there are exceptions to the rule, as always, and everything, right? Sole source contracts are a kind of contract that can be issued without competitive bidding process. This usually happens in situations where only a single business can fulfill the requirements of a contract. Okay, so to be considered for a sole source contract, you have to be in SAM, right? And participate in any one of those contracting programs that I just described, because there's no direct sole source award to a small business unless it's justified and approved in a separate process. And we won't go into that in this video, but there is a process for a normal small business to get a sole source award, but that's under different circumstances, a different premise, and different than what I'm speaking on today. What I'm speaking on today, or what this is speaking to, is that these set-asides have specific programming where, as an 8A, there are mechanisms that are in place where the government will actually help that 8A firm to get a sole source by engaging the federal entity that company is trying to engage with, right? There's a dialogue and a communication piece that happens there and helps and assists there. So it's more than just giving out a contract or saying, hey, here I am. It's very in depth. And so that's the benefit of being in these programs, if you can, and if you can get in them at the right time, per se. So in some cases, sole source contracts must be published publicly and will be marked with an intent to sole source. Potential vendors can still view and bid on these contracts Once the bidding process begins, the intent to sole source may be withdrawn. All right, let me break that down. What this means is that in some cases, when the government issues a sole source contract, they've gone through the process of justifying it and approving it through a J&A, the justification and approval. There's a whole process. And let's just say they've done all of that. They've checked all the boxes and they've determined that, yes, we're going to award a sole source contract to company ABC. And that's all fine. No problem with that. What this is saying that also, though, they may need to post that notice of their intention to award a sole source contract to company ABC. So what they're going to do is they're going to post that information in SAM. And many of you listening to this video, you've seen this before, and you maybe wonder what is this notice of intent to sole source? That's what they're talking about here. They post it out to the public for the purpose of allowing the public to view that determination per se and say, yeah, I agree with that because I can't provide it. Even though that's my field, I cannot support what the government wants because I agree that that's the only company that can do it. Or the flip side may be, I may look at that and say, wait a minute, I can do that. That's exactly what my company does. That's not the only company that can do that work. And then that would be the opportunity for that company or that vendor to submit a response to that notice of intent to sole source. You would submit a response back to the contracting officer explaining why you feel from your company's vantage point that that should not be a sole source contract, that it in fact should be competed because your firm could fulfill the government's need. And you would have to justify that in your submission back, right? If the government deems that your response is a valid one and one that has merit to the extent where they think that it should stop their process and they should not do the sole source award, then they will withdraw that intent to sole source, and then they would probably come back out with a competitive competition. Now, I'll say that that doesn't happen often, right? It can happen, and it has happened in the past, and it will happen in the future. It just doesn't happen often. And the reason why is because, remember, the government has to justify the reason why they're doing the sole source. So most times, the government is pretty thorough in completing their justification and approval. And additionally, those J&As go through layers of approvals. And so there's not just one signature authority that's reviewing it. It goes through several very smart individuals who have to review that and give their thumbs up on the document to say, yes, we agree. So that's what that's about there. Okay, so set asides. So these are the contracting programs we discuss. So some set asides are for small businesses in certain socioeconomic categories. And those are these programs here. Now, I'll just touch on these briefly. For the 8A business development program, the one thing I want to say is this. That program is 9 years long, which I don't know why. It should be longer. I mean, we've been, so the people in the groups that qualify for the program have been socially and economically disadvantaged against all of their life and all of the lives of their previous generations of their family. So I don't know why the program is limited to 9 years when the unequalness of life has been in a lifetime, in generations. And so that's something that I just don't agree with. I think it should be, if that's what you are, that's what you are. If you fall in that category, unless I understand if you start making a certain amount of money, but this is just my tangent. So just keep in mind that the 8A program is 9 years in duration. It's 9 years long. Once you reach your 9th year, you graduate and you exit the program, and you are no longer able to take advantage of the benefits that the program affords. So it's you should be very strategic and decisive in when you are entering into that program, meaning that don't just do it just because it sounds like a good thing. You need to really consider your decision on when you get into that 8A program. The best thing to do, unless, of course, I mean, there's always exceptions. So I'm not speaking about exceptions. I'm speaking about generalities in a sense. But the generally the best thing to do is to wait until your business is kind of hitting on most cylinders, like you're making some good money, you got clients, you got, you got some diversity of clients. It's not just one pot of money. You got a few different areas. So if one thing dried up, you still could keep it going. Meaning that you are actually your business is flowing, and now would be a great time to add this program on top of that, or more importantly, on the bottom of that, to help you boom, blast off, right? To really give you a boost to your business in the sense that bringing in more work. And in this case, it would be federal government work. The Hub Zone program is a program for businesses that are located in historically underutilized business zones. These are basically the poor areas of town, where, industry has moved out. There's no businesses there. There's no banking. All of the corporate stuff has decided for whatever reasons, right, to not invest in these neighborhoods. Well, this program is an incentive to business owners to open up businesses in Hub Zone to get incentive, right, to actually drive businesses to open up in Hub Zones so that they can help the area to kind of turn itself around. And so that's the benefit of Hub Zones, set-asides, and sole source contracts. The Woman-Owned Small Business Program, there's two different types. There's woman-owned small business, and there's also economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business program. And these are based on NAICS codes. So it's not just because you're a woman, right? You have to, your business, in order to qualify, you have to sell a product or a service that falls under one of the NAICS codes that are on the list. If you sell a product or a service that's not on the list, then it doesn't really you can strategize and still get the cert for other reasons, but it would not benefit you solely for the purpose of your business and for what you would be selling at that moment, because your item or your service is not on the list. Service disabled veteran owned. So this one here I want to hit on. This is very important because a time hack is coming up for the service disabled veteran owned business program. Excuse me. And what I mean by that is that, so right now you can certify as a service disabled veteran owned small business in two ways. The first way is you can do it when you register in SAM, and you can self-certify. Just check the box. Yes, I'm a veteran, and yes, I'm 10% rated, whatever you are, 50%, 100%, whatever it is. You don't have to say that in there, but if you over a certain percent, then yes, you're disabled, right? And you just check the box, and that's fine. You can do that. And the other one is through the Veterans Affairs, specifically through the Center for Verification and Evaluation. The CVE is the one that does the Veterans First program for the Veterans Affairs. And that program is for service disabled veteran-owned businesses and veteran-owned small businesses. The CVE is moving. So the CVE will no longer be under the VA. They're moving laterally, I guess, right? You can think of it. They're going to a different parent. So they're going to be under the SBA come January of 2023. So in 3 or 4 months. So January of 2023, the function of certifying service disabled veteran-owned small businesses will solely be with the SBA, and it will be the CVE that will be doing that function still, but under the SBA. So meaning that if you're a service disabled veteran and you want to get certified, or even just a veteran and not a service disabled, just both, I recommend you go and start your process now through CVE before they get extra overwhelmed in January. The closer we get to January, the worse it's going to get. We just like Sam, right? Once we get to those dates, it's just backlog until, I mean, they're human. I mean, you know, they're just like you and I. They until they can just get through everything, right? And the system can handle it. And so get your certification submissions in prior to January. And if you are already in the program, the renewal process is pretty much a breeze. I did mine, and I don't know, I submitted a couple of things back to them, like in answers, answered off. I don't know, I can't even remember, but I feel like as I answered like 3 to 6 questions, the next thing you know, I was like, they were like, thanks, you're renewed. I was like, yeah, that was cool. Nothing. So nothing to it in the sense. So if you're due up for renewal, or if it's already passed, just jump back in there and try to get it going, because you want to bypass the first of the year when everybody in the market is going to be trying to do it at the same time. All right, here, participating in these programs, here's the benefit. It means that you'll have fewer businesses to compete with to win a government contract. However, you must meet eligibility requirements and certify your business's socioeconomic status before you can bid on a set-aside contract, right? That second sentence, right, kind of self-explanatory. The first one, let's hit on this. Participating means you will have fewer businesses to compete with. So let me give an example to kind of bring this point home. So think about going to a competition. Let's say you're going to I don't know, pie eating competition. There's 100 people. And so your chance of winning is 1%. There's 100 people. You got a 1% chance of winning by participating, just by showing up. Okay. Now, let's say there was 20 people at the pie eating contest. Now your chance of winning is what? 5%, right? 20 times 5 is 100. So you have a 5% chance of winning just by showing up. Same thing with government contracting. Think of an opportunity out there. Let's say that it's for copying service, and you know, about 20 companies bid. That means that there's 20 people competing. But if they set it aside for a service disabled veteran owned small business, now that 20 may get reduced to 7, right? So your percentages have gotten much bigger. Maybe it gets reduced to 5. So now you go from a 5% chance of winning to a 20% chance of winning just by participating, right? Just by being in the game. And so there was something recent happened in the news. I knew I should have wrote it down. I was going to use it as an example, but so it was the National Football League. So you notice how lately they've been playing games over in London, right? So over here, you can, all of us, we can pretty much go to any game we want. I mean, the only barrier is, getting on the plane, buying a ticket, going to the game. So I'm not saying it's just easy to do, but generally speaking, you can do it. But I don't know that we all could go to the games over in London. That's a bigger deal, right? So it's almost like that. It's like when the games are in London, it's set aside for London. It's not, no one over here could participate. We can't go to the game. It's set aside for London. Only London and over there can go. Whereas when it's over here, it's set aside for us. Though London, they can't play in the game because they don't qualify per se. In this example, spitball example, is because they're too far away, obviously. But hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of how that works. All right. And so the last piece I'll hit here is how to certify. Of course, you can certify through SAM. And for the other programs, self-certified through SAM. But for the other programs, you'll have to engage. You can go on this website and they'll let you know where you need to go. Like I spoke earlier about the Service Disabled Veteran Owned Small Business Program. That's through CVE. The Woman-Owned program, there's several that can help with that. Right. And so you just have to go ahead and jump in here and do your homework. And why not do this last paragraph since we're here? Joint ventures. So a joint venture is two or more small businesses may pool their efforts by forming a joint venture to compete for a contract award. A joint venture of multiple small businesses still qualifies for small business set-aside contracts if its documentation meets the SBA requirements. So I'm gonna stop right there. I'm a big proponent of doing the paperwork and wherever you need for your business and just getting it in there at the city, the local city level, state, federal. In this case, the reason why is because half the battle to getting opportunity and actually getting it, like where it's like, yes, awarded to you, or yes, you got it, is just having the proper documentation and being quote unquote registered or vetted or whatever, right? Being in the system or just having all your ducks in a row, however you want to say it. I can't understate that, or overstated, I should say, is that it's very important to just, get your stuff legit and be proud of that and stand on that, because then people will be comfortable in giving and sending opportunity your way because they know that you are a company that takes care of the quote unquote small stuff, which is actually the important stuff in being a solid company and being responsible. Small businesses that have a mentor protege relationship through the all small mentor protege program can form a joint venture with a mentor, right? Which can be a large business. These joint ventures can compete together for government contracts reserved for small businesses. So real quick on this. So the joint venture thing, it would be awesome if you can find another small business. So small business is awesome. And the goal here would be if you're the new company on the block per se, you're new at this, is you want to go out and try to find a more experienced company in government contracting that does something similar to what you do. And then also, you have some type of asset, something in your profile that then can benefit them, right? And they benefit you by bringing you under their wing in this program, right? And then you all can go out and compete for contracts together. The other one where it's where you're partnering with a large business, it's the same thing. And one of the benefits that you can offer the large business is that fact that you are a small business, and they, all likelihood, they have to meet certain, not all likelihood they do, right, on their contract. If they have contracts, they have this requirement. They have to meet certain small business goals. And so your company, or by being in affiliation with you, you could potentially help them meet their small business goals. So you just got to kind of figure out, what you can offer and how it may benefit someone else. And also what, in that relationship, how you could benefit. This is how you have to go about this process of government contracting or selling to the government or capture, or however you want to call it, business development, building relationships. It takes a lot of strategy and ingenuity and thinking, right? It's not just a straight line. You try something, doesn't work, try something else, right? Because, we're dealing with humans and we're dealing with process, and these things can change, processes can change, humans can change. And so, what didn't work one day may work another day, or, you change your system, you change the way you approach, and maybe that works. And so hope this video was helpful. I'll see you all in the next one. Everyone take care.